All right. So it's JP back here with week 2 NFL picks and predictions. Let's recap how I did for week 1. Ouch. It wasn't a good week. I went 7 and 9 with my straight up picks, and then for my against the spread picks, I went 1 and 3. And I did get the total correct on the Monday night football game, but I didn't get the total correct for the Thursday night game. So I had the over on Thursday with the Chiefs Lions. That went well under. But on Monday Night Football, I had the under, and that went under. So I was 1 and 1 in my totals picks. So the Eagles barely covered the spread. That was my lone against the spread pick. That was correct. The the Washington Commanders actually punted the ball. They had a chance to at least make that prediction a push, but they opted to punt the ball to run out the clock. Just the way the game situation played out was unfortunate for me. And then I had the Texans hanging closer with Baltimore. Clearly, I was off on that pick. I thought Baltimore would struggle a little bit more than they did, and I thought Houston might play a little bit better than they did, but we'll do better this week, and I'll keep track and see how I do. So right now I'm 1 and 3 against the spread, and I'm 1 and 1 with my totals picks, and 7 and 9 with my head-to-head. Just picking a team. So we'll start out with Thursday night football. We have the Minnesota Vikings traveling to Philadelphia. The current spread is -6 for Philadelphia, and the total is at 49 points. I actually think the Eagles can win this game by more than 6 points. I'm going to make them one of my picks this week against the spread. They played these two teams played early in the season last year on Monday Night Football, and Philadelphia dominated that matchup. Now I did read that the Eagles will be without starting cornerback James Bradbury. He had a concussion in Week 1. Minnesota's going to be out with their center is going to be out for the game, and also it looks like Kenneth Gainwell will also miss the game. But the Eagles use multiple different running backs, so they should be okay enough in that position to be able to get by. In Week 1, Philadelphia struggled to run the ball after their opening drive, where they were able to get 8 first downs against New England. I look for them to establish the run and dominate the line of scrimmage with their O line. Their O line just did not get enough push, didn't create enough holes. Looking back at some of the passing plays from Philadelphia a week ago, Jalen Hurts just did not see the field particularly well. He seemed to have predetermined where he was going to throw. So hopefully he checks down his receivers better, gets Dallas Goedert involved. He seemed to not throw at him at all through that game. Minnesota lost the game at home against Tampa Bay, which is a little surprising. They had a great performance out of their rookie receiver, Jordan Addison. So you pair him with Justin Jefferson. Obviously, they lost Adam Thielen, but this rookie seems like he can take some of the attention away from Justin Jefferson. So the Eagles secondary will have a busy night. So I do think that's going to be an interesting matchup. And also, will the Eagles D line be able to get pressure on Kirk Cousins? They had 2 sacks against New England, but one of the things that set them apart last season was the volume of pressures and quarterback sacks that they had. So, Philadelphia, if they're going to win this game, they're going to need to get a little bit more pressure on the quarterback. So, should be a decently high scoring game, but 49 points early in the season is still. I could see this going either way. I'm going to stay away from the total on that one. So, Thursday Night Football, I have Minnesota losing to the Eagles head to head, and then I will take Philadelphia -6 at home. So getting to Sunday's games, we'll go over Baltimore, Cincinnati. Cincinnati's playing at home. Cincinnati did not look good at all against Cleveland. I think Cincinnati bounces back and wins this game. I know it's easy to get caught up in what happens in Week 1, but it is a very long season. So much can still happen. I think sometimes people are getting so caught up in what took place that like they act like it's going to happen every single game. So the Bengals just will not play another game that poorly this season. I can almost assure you of that. And Baltimore is a good team. Should be a close game. I'm not thinking it's a blowout, but I do think Cincinnati wins. Chicago at Tampa Bay. So Justin Fields was quite disappointing in his season debut last week. Tampa Bay got a surprise win on the road, taking on Minnesota, as I just mentioned. Baker Mayfield played with so much heart. He has some weapons there with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. So, Tampa Bay does have some stuff to be happy about. Hey, I think the fact that this one's at home, I'm going to give the edge to Tampa Bay. I feel like if Justin Fields looked a little bit better last week, I would probably go with the Bears, but until he steps up and actually, plays the part and not just the expectations that people have of him, I can't go with him yet. So we're going to ride with Tampa Bay in that game. Next game up, we have Green Bay at Atlanta. Atlanta won a game in a weird back and forth game. Desmond Ritter just did just enough to win the game, but he wasn't super impressive either. Uh, Jordan Love was exceptional last week. I got to tip my hat to him. I didn't see that coming. I'll be honest. Right now, that game's at -1 in favor of Green Bay. Green Bay just looked so good last week that I'm going to roll with them. I could see this going the opposite way too, but I don't think Green Bay is like overpowering or anything. But I think Jordan Love played good enough for me to say, okay, this kid might actually be good. So I'm going to ride with him. Next game we have up here is the Colts at Houston. Now, Anthony Richardson, the Colts quarterback, got pulled at the end of that game with a nasty collision near the goal line. And he so far is not listed on an injury report, so it looks like all systems are go. He should be back to play this game, but that's obviously going to be a major factor. Otherwise, Gardner Minshew, their backup, would play in his place. Houston struggled against Baltimore. Indianapolis actually played pretty well against Jacksonville. They were actually up in that game at one point, but they lost the lead and they just couldn't keep up. But I could see this being a very close matchup. I'm going to give the edge to Houston here. It's a home game for them. Both teams have rookie quarterbacks. Both teams are a bit hard to assess this early in the season, but I'm just going to go with Houston here. Could be wrong. I got to go with Houston just because they're playing at home, and I think they're going to move the ball a little bit better than they did against Baltimore. Kansas City at Jacksonville is the next game on the slate. Wow, that's a hard game to predict. Kansas City looks so iffy on offense, by their standards on opening Thursday night game. And Jacksonville didn't play amazing in their opener. They did get Calvin Ridley involved, and he definitely gave that offense a much needed spark. Right now, the line is in favor of the Chiefs, and I'm reading that Travis Kelce looks like he's on pace to return. That's going to be a big, you know, shot in the arm if he's able to go. I think if he goes, the Chiefs offense goes, and if he doesn't, well then we saw what happened Thursday night. So I think Jacksonville has enough pieces to really push this game. I'm actually going to pick the Jaguars, which is surprising even to myself, just because I did not expect the Chiefs to potentially go 0-2. But I just think this is a game where if Jacksonville is really going to take the next step, like people think they will, like I think they will, then they got to win a game like this. We'll see what happens. So I have Jacksonville winning that game. The Raiders at the Bills. So the Raiders won their opening matchup against Denver, and the Bills obviously did not look good at all Monday Night Football. Josh Allen played maybe one of the worst games of his NFL career. Kept throwing interceptions, 3 interceptions to the same Jets defender. He had a fumble. It just seemed like he just could not secure the ball. With that being said, though, this game's in Buffalo. Vegas has to come a long way. Buffalo's still a good team. They didn't look good on Monday night, but I think Buffalo will bounce back. I don't think they'll go 0-2, and I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo will be able to keep pace. If Josh Allen plays better than he did on Monday night, I think they'll be okay. Keep in mind the Jets have a really nasty defense, so I can see where you know it's easy to poke holes in what happened, but you know Buffalo did have a tough defense to go against. So we'll go with the Bills there. Chargers versus the Titans. Man, the Chargers put up a lot of points last week. They just couldn't stop the Dolphins. It seemed like Tua was able to connect with Tyreek Hill every time he wanted to, and just laid the ball right where he needed to. And with that being said, you got the Titans who just didn't look that great either against the Saints. They had Ryan Tannehill had a lot of turnovers in that game. I think he had 3 interceptions as well. So I think when it comes to these types of matchups, I'm gonna go with the Chargers, even though they're on the road. I feel like Justin Herbert will score enough points. Ryan Tannehill just does not seem like he's the guy anymore. I don't know. Maybe Tennessee will find a better offensive rhythm this game, but I don't know. That team's just looks like they're stalling out. I feel like they hit their peak a few years ago and they were kind of just fizzling out. I think they need some fresh energy in there. So I'm gonna go with the Chargers in that game. Miami Dolphins at New England Patriots. So the Dolphins had their way with the Chargers offensively, but they did give up a lot of points. Whereas the Patriots started out in a 16-0 deficit and actually came within a score of winning that game and were driving late in that game. Just 1 foot out of bounds for the receiver on a 4th down ended that game where they were driving. They were right in that game. This is in New England, so this is their second home game of the year. Um, I think I'm gonna go with the Dolphins here. Tua showed enough to me that he can make some plays. If there's one takeaway I had from the Patriots Eagles matchup, it was that New England's offense seemed really sporadic. Mac Jones had some moments where he looked really good. He had a stretch where he had like 10 straight completions or something like that. But then he also had some passes where they just weren't on the mark either. So I could see this. I could see New England pulling this victory out. Their defense looks really good. It came together late in that game. They were stopping the Eagles. The Eagles couldn't get a first down in the second quarter of that game. So they were doing some good things, that's for sure. But I'm going to go with the Dolphins to win that game on the road. Next matchup, we got the Giants at the Cardinals. The Giants could not have looked much worse than they did on Sunday night against Dallas. And the Cardinals actually played a pretty competitive football game against Washington. However, I think the Giants are going to bounce back in a big way here. They just did not play well. It seemed like everything went against them. It's just one of those games, and it's a funny league. As bad as the Giants looked on Sunday night, I think they'll bounce back here against the Cardinals. The Cardinals might be that team that gets everybody else right this year when they're struggling. They go against Arizona and they fix things. So we'll see what happens. Next game, we have Seattle at Detroit Lions. Geno Smith just did not have a good game against the Rams. Before last season, Geno Smith was a journeyman quarterback, bounced around the league, and didn't really stick anywhere in a starting role. Last year, he obviously had a great season, but I don't know if he's really the guy that we saw the whole season last year. I'm still not sold on him. And the Lions, obviously coming off that Thursday night victory against the Chiefs, give me the Lions here. Tyler Lockett had an injury last week. We'll see if he plays. He's not on the injury report yet, but uh, we'll see if he plays. That's going to definitely help the Seahawks if he does. But I'm going to go with the Lions there. 49ers at the Rams. So I just read that the 49ers are going to be wearing their home red jerseys. Their fans travel really well on the road. The Rams just have trouble drawing home fans for whatever reason. So, I'm going to roll with the 49ers here. They seem to have the edge in this series. The 49ers looked like the best team in the NFL last week, the way they played. And, they didn't miss a beat from where they were last year. Brock Purdy is looking really good. I think the 49ers are going to win that game. Now, Sean McVay had some nice little wrinkles in his offense to get that offense going. Obviously, they just put Cooper Kupp on the IR, so he's going to be out until at least week 5. But, there was a lot to be made of Matthew Stafford's wife making some comments about how he's having trouble connecting with the younger players. But he actually did quite well in week 1. So this game might be a little closer than we expect, but I'm going to go with the 49ers here. New York Jets at the Cowboys. The Jets, man, what a swing their season took. And this is the reason why nobody really knows anything, because injuries changed the whole landscape here. Aaron Rodgers was expected to lead them to the promised land, and now we have Zach Wilson thrust back into the starting position again. So Dallas, on the other hand, well, Dallas had a very interesting week 1. Dallas just destroyed the Giants on Sunday night, doing it on all phases of the game, special teams, defense, offense. They were just destroying them. One thing that's interesting, though, I was looking at the line. You know, as good as they played and as dominant as the performance was, their offense wasn't incredible. Dak Prescott went 13 of 24 for 143 yards. I know the conditions weren't great for throwing the football, but those aren't exactly incredible numbers, especially when you think about a 40 to nothing score. The team, Dallas, had 265 yards in that game. So that's not a ton of yards to score 40 points. So impressive. They were opportunistic. They did a great job of forcing turnovers and scoring right away and capitalizing on them. But I think it's easy to overshoot how good they are just based on one game. So we'll see. We'll see a little bit more what they're made of against a really impressive Jets defense. I do have Dallas winning that game, however. I just think coming on a short week, Zach Wilson, Micah Parsons is going to get in his face, and I don't know if he's going to be able to handle all that. So I'm going to go with the Cowboys there. Washington Commanders at the Denver Broncos. Washington had some trouble with the Arizona Cardinals at home, surprising to me. Denver also had their struggles against the Raiders. So both teams didn't look great. One comes out the victory, one didn't. Jerry Jeudy looks like he's making progress and should play in week 2. That should help the Broncos a lot. I'm going to go with Denver at Mile High just because I just think they're the better team, and I think they're going to play a little bit better than they did in week 1. If Washington struggled with Arizona, I think Denver can at least, score enough points to win that game. Cleveland Browns at Pittsburgh. Cleveland was really good in week 1. I'm not surprised that they looked as good as they did. I actually picked them to beat the Bengals. So I'm not surprised by that. Pittsburgh, however, I was surprised by. I thought they'd play a little bit better. I actually picked them to win last week too, and they let me down big time. So I'm going to go with Cleveland here until I see Pittsburgh get right. I can't trust them. I think Cleveland seems to be rolling right now. They're playing with a lot of confidence, and I got to go with them until the tide swings the other way. The Saints Panthers. This is a tough game. I could see this going absolutely either direction. I'm gonna roll with the Panthers just because I picked them to win the division, and I don't think the division is so dominant that one team is just gonna run away with it. I could be mistaken, but early on, I want to see what the Panthers are made of. Bryce Young did not have a great week 1 game, but it's a long season. He's a rookie. I think he's gonna have a better game on Monday Night Football, and that's my pick right now. Now for my against the spread picks, I got Philadelphia -6 at home versus the Vikings. They won this game pretty easily last year. Not saying it'll be as easy this year, but I think they're going to get their running attack involved, and I think the D line's going to disrupt Kirk Cousins. I think they'll win this game. My next against the spread pick, I have the Cleveland Browns -2.5 on the road at Pittsburgh. I just think Cleveland is rolling right now. I think 3 points is a normal margin to win a game by, so I could see them winning it by a field goal, probably more, but I'm going to take the -2.5 right now. Cleveland's going to win that game. My next game, I'm going to pick the New York Giants -5.5 at Arizona. I just think Arizona's not a great team. I think the Giants are going to right the ship. It's a little hard to go with the Giants and trust what they can do based on how poorly they played, but it's one game. I think they're going to get it together, and I have them winning that game. So we have Philadelphia, New York, and Cleveland all against the spread this week. All right. Thank you for watching, and hopefully I do better than I did last week. Have a good day.